Hey, Derek from ForeGolf Custom here, and today we're looking at Mizuno's ES21 wedges. If you're a new kind of to golfer or a mid to high handicapper, these are the wedges you're going to want to look at. And these are some fitters' insights into how we've been fitting with it, and also I've got a really cool Q&A with Dave towards the end, which might help answer some of those questions you might have. So Dave, these wedges, we kind of like them.
We do.
And when they came in first, they looked a little bit chunky, but then we kind of dug deep into them and realized that it was a lot to do with the design and the way that the cavity and the front cavity is. But why are you using these heads for wedges? That's the first question, I guess.
Traditionally in the golf industry, you've either bought bladed wedges like T20s or Vokeys or things along those lines, or you got wedges with sets. This is kind of, I'm not going to call it new, but relatively new in terms of its structure, that we now have a progressive wedge, or a wedge that allows people who aren't bladed and don't know the benefits of that sort of system with people who just pick up wedges. It's a blended product, it's a progressive product. It allows you to learn the benefits of wedges as an amateur golfer without necessarily have to go and whole hog into bladed products that you're not really sure what they're supposed to do. So
if the viewers at home are watching this and they've got like a normal sand wedge and pitching wedge in your normal iron set, so if you've got a set of irons and it has a normal P and an S and a pitching wedge sandwich, would you be replacing that idea with these?
So the P, no, because the pitching wedge tends to be part of that set profile. Also in this profile, there's no gap wedge either. Now, because it's a Mizuno product and the new JPX 921, they have brought in gap wedges with their sets, then this only starts at 54 degrees. This is more of a sand wedge, lob wedge conversation as opposed to a pitch and wedge, sand wedge conversation.
That's important to note. So you're welcome to the channel. This is fitters information, so not like, you know, us hitting the balls and reviewing what we think about it personally. It's more about, you know, how Dave's been fitting with it. So this is golden information. So this is stuff you need to understand. So really, if you're thinking about a set of irons and you're contemplating, you know, getting performance wedges or different types of wedges, yeah, Dave is saying get the gap wedge in your set, and then maybe look at these as your, I guess, wedges further from that. And why would you drop out the normal wedges and put these in? What's the key, you know, information that people need about the performance?
With your wedges from your set, they're very one-dimensional. A sand wedge is a club for getting you out of sand, and that's how people deem them. So they don't necessarily see the added benefits of the wedge and its versatility. You can hit low shots, you can hit high shots, you can hit controlled shots, you can hit them out of bunkers. It allows you to learn a greater variety of shots from one club as opposed to having one club that is one-dimensional. Right, and you're getting people used to then hitting different shots with that higher lofted range. But I mean, I've always been a big advocate of wedges full stop, whether you're a high handicapper or a low handicapper, because they can get you out of so much trouble if you're having a bad day at the top end of the golf bag.
You fit with them separately, don't you?
I always look at them as a separate entity. Now, I might flow the lengths and the weights and the balances from a set of irons.
Yes.
But I might flow the shaft, but more often than not with wedges, sometimes you have a little bit of extra weight. They're never quite as stiff. Okay. They're more of a feel orientated product, especially if we're trying to do this variety of shots. We don't want it to be one-dimensional, as in you've got to hit it flat out, and that's the only shot you can do with it. All right,
well, let's maybe then talk about, we'll have a little talk about a couple of the aspects of the wedge which relate to this. So let's talk about the lofts first. So we briefed on it earlier, but yeah, let's just talk people through what lofts sort of settings are you using in this particular wedge.
So it starts at 54, so there's nothing stronger than that. So you've got to first get pitching wedge and gap wedge, because then there's only really a sand wedge. And traditionally, as lofts have got stronger in irons, then wedges lofts have had to get stronger too. So I tend to use in most people's bags, because the 4 to pitch and wedge profile is now more of a 5 to gap wedge conversation with irons going further. And then we want the wedges to back in as well. I tend to do an awful lot of 54, 58 combinations.
Right.
Now, you've got lots of increments. You can go 1 degree gaps, from 54 all the way up to 62 in this range. So you could have 55-60, you could have 56-60 if your irons you know are weak lofted, or you've asked them to be weak lofted, or traditional lofted as we like to call it.
Yeah, so what Dave does there is during a fitting session, he'll actually run through TrackMan with different shots and different strikes and different obviously readings from TrackMan to work out the spin, distance and launch, and then he will work the lofts then in to suit the different types of golfer or what he's trying to achieve for the gapping and getting people introduced to the different distances. So let's have a quick a chat about bounce. And I know that you tend to favour quite a more lower than higher for this type of golfer. Just explain why or what you're seeing with bounce, or what it is.
Bounce angle between the gap between the leading edge and the ground. Again, I'm an advocate that bounce can work in certain situations, but if you miss time bounce, you can create this kind of thin shot. So I always like something mid to lowish, so then you can get the front edge of the wedge underneath the ball quicker and at least make contact with the ball first, and then if there's any turf interaction, at least the ball's on its way before it actually gets stuck, and then you're not looking at a wedge going, I've bounced that, or I've thinned it, or I've left it into the front edge of the bunker. You've said, at least I've hit it. And
I think it also works well with this particular wedge because the CG is quite high in the face.
Nice and high in the face, yeah.
And also then, with bounce, we tend to get the front edge in, as you said, and then obviously allow the face to interact and so forth and so on. We've had a few emails recently and a few kind of contacts on social media about some wedge questions. So what I thought would be cool was, we'll pull these questions in as part of this video, maybe give you some insights and understanding about questions that you might have about wedges, and we'll fire them at Dave and see what he says. So the first one, Dave, is should I use 56-60 or 54-58? Which loft should I use?
Well, I mean, as a fitter's tip, which I tend to try and give you as many as I can, I think the most important thing in this conversation is understand what the lofts are of the clubs you don't know what they are. So you might look up the pitching wedge and it doesn't have a number on it, and you go to the website and it says it's 45 degrees. Is it? So get them measured. So if you're going to keep an irons or you get new irons, make sure that you know the lofts of them. Then that means gapping the wedges, because ideally everything runs in 4-degree increments. As I said, most wedges these days are strong in loft. So 54-58 tends to be the right combination with a 50 gap wedge and a 46 pitching wedge.
Perfect. And then the other question we got the other day was, is the shaft important in the wedge?
I would say it's less important than it would be in an iron, because you're not necessarily hitting full shots. But as I said earlier, once it's not too stiff and once it's got plenty of feel, and ideally if it's got a little bit of weight, that does it no harm either. So it maybe not as important as it is in an iron, but from a feels perspective, pull it all the way through if you're a feel guy, or if you want something with a different feel, so you know you've got a different club in your hand, and change it up. Don't be afraid of asking for different shafts.
And are different wedges harder to hit? A question we get asked all the time is, are wedges harder to hit? So the question I'm going to ask you is, are some wedges difficult to hit or harder to play with? So
in terms of easy to hit, that T20, that Vokey, are more difficult to master, where something like this is a little bit more plug and play. You can pick it up, you know what the lofts are, you know that they do different jobs, and there are the way the stability there, it looks like a bladed wedge, but there's a cavity in there, so a much more overall forgiving product to give you confidence that you can hit a wedge first and foremost, and that it can have a multitude of jobs in your golf bag.
So bottom line is, this is a great looking wedge. We love that dark finish. It looks fantastic behind the ball, keeps glare off it, and the grey-black combo. It looks fantastic, easy to frame up. It's really that wedge that's more suited towards somebody that may be thinking about, do I need to get wedges for the first time, or do I need to look at, I guess, performance wedges along with my, instead of the wedges I have in my set. And so for more that, I guess, mid to high handicapper. Bottom line is, if you're thinking of wedges, you're that mid to high handicap, you want something that's really easy to hit and very easy to get the ball into the face and in the air, this is one to look at. Hope you're enjoying the content. Please give us a like if you do like what we're talking about here. It's very important. Lets us know that we're doing the right thing. Subscribe to the channel, please, as well. It's all about fitters information. We'd love to have you along for this journey into how to get the best from the clubs from a fitting perspective. Until the next time, we'll see you then. Thanks for watching.